All right, that's what's up.
training? How was
The
training for
training.
you, and what would you do differently if you were running?
Yeah. So what would I do
Yeah.
differently? So how was training? I had an incident. I had an incident where I was sprayed. I was actually sprayed with my own weapon with a pepper spray, you guys. And I tell the story about that. Everybody on my channel voted for that one. They want to hear that police story. And I talked about training and how important, how vital training was. And if I didn't have that training, that real base training, I probably wouldn't have handled myself so well. So
Mhm.
training is vital. I will say this: at my department that I started off with in DeKalb County, our training was very, very superior to a lot of other police departments on the East Coast. I would say, and no, and shout out to like LAPD and New York. I know they have a very, very, high quality training academy as well. But down here in the South, our department was known to be one of the toughest, and then one of the most, I would say, high quality training in Georgia, and they're known for that. And even though we didn't have necessarily the best equipment, it was the real base training that they really harped on a lot, and just saying like, hey, here are some real scenarios. If you're on your back, can you draw your gun? If someone is doing this, how do you know? Do you know how to actually protect yourself or protect another person? A lot of real base training. We also had a particular training, a VR type of situation where you're inside of a giant room and they have a projector out, and you have a actual gun with a laser on it. You have all your tools, and they do scenario based training. So you're actually walking through a virtual kind of reality type of simulator, and you
Mhm.
have to make the right decisions in that moment. And like that type of training isn't afforded to everybody. I tell people all the time that all police departments aren't created equal, right? We have approximately 18,000 police departments in this country. And to be honest with you, some aren't that great, when it comes to training, when it comes to getting quality officers. And that has a big impact on how they do their job. Because if you don't have the training, then that's a thing, right? Like that's a big issue. Some departments are like a couple weeks, like maybe 3 months, if that.
Mhm.
Someone made a joke one time, a long time ago, and said, hey, it's you got to be in barber school and hair school longer than you do have to be a police officer, and that's embarrassing. I never thought about it like that. So if you got to be in, if anybody looks up, I think it's like almost a year and a half, almost, I think, to get your barber or your beautician's license. So you over here
Yeah.
making people, you know, making people beautiful, you know,
Yeah.
making people great again. And then as an officer, you have the power to take life. You have the power to
Yeah.
judge, right? You have the power to be a jury. You have the power to be an executioner. You have the power to enforce laws on people. And then you're talking 3 months, three
Wow.
months.
I didn't
And
know.
but 12, and then it's 12 months to dye somebody's hair. Shit. Make it
Oh,
make
wow.
sense. Make it make sense. You're like, hey, if you want to line somebody up, if you want to take a razor to a person's scalp, you need to be certified for 12 months. Like,
Mhm.
hey, if you want to carry a gun and put bullets in somebody, you need to be up in here for 3 months. And it's okay if you're not that good of a shooter. And see, this is the problem, right? So the American people, right? This is bigger than a black problem. I tell people that all the time. That as a people, sometimes we think we monopolize drama, we monopolize pain, or we monopolize struggle in this country. We're not the only ones that are suffering from bad police officers. And that's it's kind of like the purpose of my channel, to kind of like highlight those things and kind of bring perspective to these things that we don't completely understand. And so training is vital, Gail. It's the heartbeat, right? Like you need to.
Right.
And it's the job is so serious, the job is so important that you can't afford not to be trained well. But on top of that, I think you asked a good question, like what would you do different with the training? I would make it more real based. I would make it longer. I tell people all the time, this should be the hardest profession to get into.
Uh,
When when I was in the academy, we had like almost 50. We had like 50 applicants, and we had 50 people in my academy. And I knew right off the bat, walking in, I'm like, yo, there's about 20 of y'all who have no business being up in here. Some of y'all,
why you say that?
I mean, you can just tell by people's energy. You can tell by their behavior, right?
Mhm.
Like you can just tell. You can look at a person and discern that you're like, you're here for the wrong reason. We had a guy in
Right.
there. He was like, "Hey, I signed up because I was bored at my job and I want to do something different." Listen, this is not the job you get in because you want to do something different. You have to ask yourself, I'm a police officer. I'm a police
Mm-hmm.
officer. My job is to think of others before I think of myself. Am I willing to sacrifice myself for the safety and well-being of others? And if you can't make that decision, you're in the wrong profession. You
Absolutely.
know, for me, I love people. I love to see people happy. I'm a little bit sensitive when I see people suffering. That's the type of officer people really want. I mean, you got to be tough when you need to be tough, but then you need to be caring, empathetic when those times present themselves.
Right.
So I would say for the most part. And wow, now listen, you guys, I believe about 20% of the officers aren't worth a damn in this country. A strong 20%. And listen, if you want to fix the problem, you have to be part of the solution. You need to sign up. You need to sign up. If you don't like what you see, we need to start grooming people who have the integrity, who have the values, who have the characteristics, the love, and the willingness to serve others. We need them to sign up, you guys. Why? Hey, we need you in our community. We can't complain about white people and then beg them to protect us.
Absolutely.
It doesn't make any sense. Have I seen someone do anything bad? I had a coworker, a good friend of mine, a black officer. He we were arresting some burglary suspects. So I worked on a burglary task force, and we were arresting these guys. And what happened? The guy ended up, after being put in handcuffs, he spit on the officer. He spit on my friend's face, and it was drippy. And my friend immediately, out of a knee-jerk reaction, punched him in the face and dropped him. And this is before we had body cameras. We didn't have cameras. These cameras things just came out recently, you guys. When I started in 2008, we didn't have any of that fancy stuff. He dropped him, knocked him cold out. They fired him for it. See, my department was big on accountability as officers. Now, there were some officers who were able to circumvent around the rules because they knew somebody. This is what people don't like. There are some officers who were able to get a slap on the wrist. They were able to quit without being investigated because they knew somebody. It's like this in all professions. But people don't like it in policing, right? Because of the power that we hold. They're like, listen, we can't afford to give you guys an inch because you'll take a mile. We can't afford to give you a little bit because you'll abuse it. And it's true. There needs to be a structure in place. And I know it needs to happen because I worked it. I know with government work, you need transparency. That's what people want to see. They want transparency because, again, we're giving you all this power. We're giving you all this responsibility. The least you can do is let us see what's going on behind that curtain.
Right.
And when you see people who have status, you see celebrities, people with money, people who know the judge, someone who slept with someone up at the top, they get favoritism. I didn't get favoritism. No one showed me any favoritism. So I had to play by the rules. And when you're not a person of status, when you don't know the chief or the captain or this person or that person, you have to play by the rules. And so, have I seen someone? No, in that case, yes, in that situation, but he's like, man, I didn't mean to hit him. Everybody understood why he did it, but we knew it wasn't right. No one tried to cover it up, and he was honest about it. He said, hey, man, he spit on me. We charged the suspect for battery, right? Simple assault. We charged him with simple assault. You spit on someone, that's a charge. It's simple assault. All right? So we add an additional charge, but then what happened? This man lost his job. He lost his job because he couldn't control his emotions. Listen, some people say, you're a better man than me. Why? Because if someone spit on me, I'm knocking them cold out. But you guys, this is the job. If you can't control your emotions, you can get someone hurt. You can get yourself hurt. You can get yourself sued. So the problem is, what are we looking at as an officer? You got to be built different. You got to be built. Not everyone can do this job. Listen, less is more when it comes to police officers. Less is more. It's not made for everybody. You know, and Gail, to be honest with you, I associated myself with people who were like-minded. I didn't associate with officers that like to harass people for tickets. I had a thing where I only arrest criminals. If you're not a criminal, I'm letting you go. We have no business dealing with each other. Say, Gail, I'll pull you over, and I'm like, oh, I saw you ran the red light. I look at you, I see this beautiful lady minding her business. She ran the light. Ma'am, here's a warning. Go about your business. Why? Because dealing with you, there's somebody else that needs my attention. There's a criminal out there that needs my attention. I don't have time to waste with you. So I associated with officers in my department who were about business. We're about catching criminals, you guys. We had no time to be playing around with people going to and from work. I couldn't stand officers that would hide behind bushes at 7 o'clock in the morning pulling people over for speeding. Hey, sir, I'm sorry I was speeding. I'm late for work. Well, you should have got up early, sir. I need you to sign right here, press hard, all 5 copies. That's how, listen. They don't care. They don't care.
Yeah, I remember my first ticket. I was actually, now this was before I became woke. I think I was probably in my early mid-20s. I was in my mid-20s, and I was it was getting dark, and I was 2.5 hours away from home. I was helping a friend move, and I was trying to get home because I had to work the next day.
Okay.
It was on this long stretch. It was like there was nothing but woods, and the police hit the lights on me. Now, I just, my fear was more of me pulling over and not knowing it was the real police, because I'm in the middle of nowhere. It's a stretch of nothing but woods.
Right.
If it's wrong, if it was not a police, then something could happen on the side of this road and nobody would know.
Yeah.
So I kept going.
Okay.
I kept driving until I got to where there was at least a house.
Okay.
And light. And yes, I was speeding, but it was my first ticket. And I felt like, he just let me go. Just let me, you see my record, my insurance is good, my plates are good, my car, you know what I'm saying? But it was in a 72 and a 55. I'm like, yeah, he can let me go. But was I speeding? I was speeding.
How was his demeanor with you? How was he to you?
He was very not, he wasn't rude or nothing like that. He wasn't swole, he wasn't acting like, he was a boss or anything. He was just very formal about it.
Was he white or black?
He was white. But let me tell you, what made me mad was him telling me, now, if you was going, I was going 72 and a 55, right?
All right.
He said, if you were going 70, I will let you go. I'm like, now, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, why? It's my first ticket. You still don't have any record.
Right.
I was going 70, you will let me go. And I was going 72 though, in a 55. But I'm like, whatever. So, but yeah, I was, and I believe then I was afraid to pull over because I was in the middle of nowhere and I didn't want to pull over. And I think he may have understood that too, because I did keep going.
Right.
I could see it up.
Right.
Down. And then I had it on cruise control, so I knew I was speeding. I was speeding on purpose. I had it on cruise.
Yeah.
But I had to, for me to feel safe, I had to get to where there was a little area and it was like some houses around.
But yeah,
I was mad with y'all about that ticket.
Before the Billions asked something earlier, I wanted to touch on. I think is it worth to knock them out and lose a job? So before the Billions is a good question, because here's the thing. I've seen officers put their pride before their job. And that's a good question. Is it worth to knock them out and lose your job? It depends on you as a person. It's a good question. And I'm going to say, this is why it's a good question, because being a man, sometimes we put our pride over our better judgment. And I've seen officers say, listen, I've done it too, you guys. I've done it before. Someone just talking so much mess, and they know you can't put your hands on them. I said, listen, man, I get off at 6 o'clock. I get off at 6 o'clock, and this uniform doesn't define me. We can box it out. We can box it out. And if you win, you don't go to jail, right? This is the kind of talk we have sometimes. Listen, you guys, I'm working in the hood. I'm working in the hood, you guys. And so when there's sometimes you're dealing with guys who square up with you, and they're like, I don't care that you're a cop. You're gonna respect me as a man. I've had people tell me, if you want to take me to jail, you have to earn it. The first time as an officer, I heard someone say, I'm not going back to prison. You guys, it sent chills down my spine. He looked me in the face and said, I was chasing after him. He turned around and looked me in my eye and said, I'm not going back to prison. There's moments in this career where, listen, it's all fun and games until it's time for you to do your job as an officer. Because normally what ends up happening, people just comply. Hey, so you're going to jail. All right. You got me. Right? When I started policing, it was like freeze tag. People commit a crime and you chase after them. And the moment you touch their shoulder, they're like, all right, you got me, officer. I'm not resisting. Now it's a little bit different. People are really, I had a couple times where people were willing to die on the street for their freedom. Because what does it look like? A lot of people don't realize it. You guys, I've had about 6 or 7 life and death encounters. My last one caused me to quit, right? Caused me to retire. I had about 7 life and death, like I'm fighting for my life. Video about the spray, about how I got sprayed in my face with my own pepper spray. That was a life and death fight. The guy was trying to pull my gun. He was trying to get my gun. And so, that's not the first time, that's not the last time that's happened. And so when we talk about these situations with officers, what happens when someone says they're not going to jail? What does it feel like? Your job is to put them in handcuffs. You're the only one there. You have no backup. This person's approaching you. He's ready to fight. By any means necessary, he wants to go home. He wants to be free. Listen, he doesn't have a weapon, but anytime an officer shows up, there's always a gun at the scene. It's your gun. It's your gun. There have been times where officers have fought and they had their weapon taken and it was used against them. Every time you show up at a scene, there's always a gun present. It's yours. And there's some people who are capable of taking that weapon. We've had it done recently, right? We had 2 officers respond to a hotel. And, the woman was begging for her life. Said, please don't kill me. And the man shot her. It was a black man. It was a black woman. They went on a run. They have it all on body cam. Could you imagine? You're pleading for your life as an officer. Hey, you're free to go. You're free to go. Don't kill me. And they take your life anyway.
This is Gail at Night. Thank you all for watching and thank you for supporting. Be sure to click the like button and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and set the bell to all.